Me being Armenian and raised in Turkey as a Christian, I didn't want to get involved with any religion at all.
As distasteful as religion was to young Murat Coskun, he was destined to lead people to the spiritual path.
What turned me off from religion as a young man was its intolerance to different behavior, different cultures. In Turkey, I saw mostly old people practicing it, either Islam or Christianity. So I thought maybe it was a weakness of a human being. They needed religion to feel good in their older days. But later on in life, I realized that it's more than that.
When Murat turned 16, he left Turkey for a new life in Canada. 4 years later, he had a reason to turn to religion.
When I lost my father at the age of 20, I was in the room with him. His body was there, still warm, but he was missing something. I loved my father. I wanted to know where he went. What happens to a person when they died? Where would the spirit go? What would happen? So there was a lot of questions to be answered. My spiritual journey started that day. I searched just like any other young person in Toronto in those days.
Murat found answers from the country and culture he had tried to leave behind. It was a Muslim man from Turkey who introduced Murat to Sufism, or Islamic mysticism.
My teacher impressed me with his behavior, with his patience. And he had a lot of answers to my questions. So that's how it started. I found the Islamic Sufism, and the first question I asked myself, is this my path? Of course, I had many prejudices at the time. I found the joy, so that was more important than what I knew about the religion or my prejudice. This was my chance to know Islam. What I saw was beautiful. People were practicing their religion, but also growing and having joy. It expanded their hearts. It expanded their love. I said to myself, the fruit is beautiful. The tree must be beautiful. And the tree was Islam. Allahümme salli ala seyyidina Muhammedin ve ala ali Muhammed. Islamic mysticism started a few centuries after the Prophet. People wanted to go back to the mystic path, so the Sufism came about. Hazreti Hüdara tekbira, Allahu Ekber, La ilaha.
After many years of training, Murat became a Sheikh, a teacher in the lineage of the Rafai Sufi, or Dervish tradition.
Sufism always existed in time, in history. It existed with the first man asking himself the question, where I am from, what am I doing under the stars?
As a mystic path, the goal of the dervish is union with Allah, the Creator. Murat explains this to his students.
The Allah that a Sufi knows, it's in him. It's closer to him than his own jugular vein. None of us will know him perfectly till we reach him. This is possible for a human being, that he can meet his Creator and melt in him and become one with him.
The obstacle to unity is the ego, and a Sufi has many tools to subdue it. Perhaps their most known method is the tradition of the whirling dervishes.
The whirling that we see today in the Mevlevi order. It started with Hazreti Mevlana Celaleddin Rumi. He would read poetry and he would whirl around a pillar. Later on, this was developed into a ceremony. The hat symbolizes the tombstone. The black coat represents the creation before creation. And as soon as they take the black coat off, the creation comes into existence. The white skirts represents the shroud. When a person is dead, he will be wrapped in a shroud and buried, and his tombstone would be on his head. This represents the death of the ego. The goal of the Sufi is to get closer to his creator, and if he's fortunate, coming one with him. Music and poetry is used in the Sufi path because it brings the resistance of your ego down. It makes you forget more about yourself.
During weekly gatherings, Sufi poetry is recited to remind the dervishes of their promise to Allah.
It's called Advice for a Dervish. Come, my friend, together let us say, Allah, Allah. Come, my dervish, let us whirl with hearts inflamed. Let us drink the wine of love to our fill. Let us do the zikr of Allah hand in hand. Let us keep the beauty of Allah in the center of our circle.
Sufis often express their relationship to Allah as that of lover to beloved. The longing for the beloved is evoked through song.
In Sufi tradition, you see a lot of love. This is the feeling of the dervish. He takes his creator as his beloved. And this relationship grows through the years. Historically, the tension has always existed between the mainstream Islam and the dervishes, because dervishes introduced music, dancing into religion, which wasn't acceptable by the mainstream religious people. They couldn't understand how can God be the lover of the human being.
Every week, dervishes meet for teachings and the practice of zikr.
A friend of mine asked me about zikr. Zikr in Arabic, it means remembrance. And what are we remembering? We are remembering Allah, God, our creator. That's the path of a Sufi, to remember. The expression that he uses is La ilaha illallah. There is no God but Allah. La ilaha illallah. This is the most important phrase that we have. By repeating this with breathing, we start forgetting about ourselves. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha. The zikr captures us, and we are melting into Allah altogether. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. In our school, we have Jews and Arabs, Turks and Armenians sitting together. Their common point is the love of God. So when we look at each other, we see each other's heart.